Hey everyone, it's Daria. I just wanted to give you a quick video on sprint retrospectives. So I grabbed one of the webinars I did some time ago and just cut a short clip out of it that I think has some very important and useful information for you. And that's pretty much it. I do a presentation in the video, so I'm going over some of the points and notes. And at the beginning, I'm also actually doing a question to the audience, so we have some good ideas coming into during the presentation, kind of from whoever was in this webinar at the time. And I think it just can give you some good ideas into what are some of the common challenges that teams may experience in retrospectives. I talk about why it's not as scary as it sounds, as well as give you some ideas of what you can do to resolve those challenges to actually help your team improve. I want to ask you a question. What's the worst that could happen? So I wanted you to think of some awful retrospective that you have attended, or the non-ideal retrospective that you have been into. And think about what are the usual challenges that you have experienced in retrospectives, right? Whether it was a one instance, whether you were a participant or you were a facilitator, but just think about, well, what are the challenges that usually come up? What we'll do is answer this question together. So what are the usual challenges you have experienced with retrospectives? Not much participation, obviously, something that we often see, and then gets monotonous with the same issues getting repeated. We're always talking about same old problems and never really anything changes. Earlier retrospective actions being repeated, so we don't really see the results of our discussions, the results of retrospectives, because we keep coming back to the same things. Conflicts, definitely something that happened, where we have conflicts between the development team and the product owner, who didn't do what, right? Things happening around the team members, not being sure how to work better together. Product owners and team members questioning the value of the retrospective, definitely. And especially when we go back to the previous notes, you say, we're repeating action items. We are talking about the same issues. So obviously, what is the value of the retrospective? We're not getting what we need to get from a retrospective. Everyone complaining about one problem. And often this problem is something that we can't really address. That often happens, right? Everyone's complaining about the same thing and we just keep repeating ourselves over and over. Oh, not again. No one wants to go, right? Because we don't have a lot of participation, because we don't have a lot of result coming from retrospective, no one wants to go there. Feels like a waste of time, an hour of time, especially if your sprint ends on a Friday, then no one wants to be there on a Friday afternoon. Not enough time to discuss everything. That definitely happens, especially if we have a time box, 1 hour, and then we have so many ideas, and especially if we have or are dealing with a lot of problems, right? Dealing with a lot of problems, and we're trying to solve all of them, so we have so many different ideas how to fix that. The issue for the team lies primarily outside of the team, such as delayed customer feedback and unavailability of stakeholders, I assume. Unavailability of the test builds to validate the work from the sprint. Okay, so the team feels stuck. They have so many different external forces preventing them from being successful. That's why we often talk about the same problem. We'll often go back to the same issues and we keep repeating them, right? So we feel that there is some external issues that are preventing us from succeeding. Not a lot of feedback on improvement from high-performing teams. That often happens when the team is actually doing pretty good. It becomes much more difficult to find new ways to improve. But remember, sprint retrospective and agile is all about continuous improvement. How can we improve continuously so that we don't become complacent, so that we do not create a status quo in our team? That's interesting because we always jump from one to another because they're all are linked. And what I also see is none of this is new. What I see here, now I've run this webinars with many different groups coming from different countries, from different time zones, working in remote and non-remote environments, and they all bring to the table pretty much the same problems. We always see the same things, and while we experience those challenges, are pretty common, and that's why I want to say that it's not as bad as it looks. And here's a couple of reasons why. First of all, as I said, those issues are common. We're all experiencing them. So it's something that we definitely can see in many different industries and countries and cultures. Many issues are caused by the same underlying problem. And we'll talk more about that underlying problem as we go forward in the presentation. And often, if we address the cause, we can solve the issue. And it's just that trying to figure out what is the actual underlying problem that causes the issue in the retrospective. And the interesting thing is that not all of the problems have to be addressed in a retrospective, right? It's things that you can do in a retrospective with the team. But as we saw in the answers there, some issues are external. So you can't really address some things within the retrospective, and you can address them outside of the retrospective. Also, what often happens that a lot of the issues, while they all seem different, they can be grouped together but based on what is the underlying problem that causes them. And once we identify that, we're able to figure out how to solve that. Now, the good thing is that we don't always have to just go outside of our retrospective or outside in the organization and trying to fix the whole organization before we can see any positive change in the retrospective or in your team. Because here's what usually happens. And this is kind of a little techniques to behavior cycle. Organization drives team dynamics. Based on what the organization is like, we know that our team will behave in a certain way, looking up to the organization. Now, team dynamics drive retrospectives, we saw. But at the same time, retrospectives can drive team behaviors. How well we're running our retrospective, we're able to drive the team behaviors in the right way and really help them understand how they can be successful as a team. And then as a team, we can be a change agent to the organization, and team behaviors do drive organizational culture as well. And once again, it's a cycle. So we are trying to tap into our retrospective as our wheel for change, right? That's where we can start the change, start the spark, and start transmitting it over into the organization, right? While we are fixing problems within the retrospective, we can still address other things, right? We can still work with the organization and the team in general. By tapping into the retrospectives, we're able to create the right behaviors and encourage the cultural change in the organization in general. So that's just to kind of say, even if we are focusing on retrospective alone, we can already start seeing the right behaviors. And that's why I do want to mention that retrospective is not just a retrospective, right? You can use the retrospective as a mirror of what is happening in the team or organization. And personally, for you as a Scrum Master, create a plan that you can act on, while at the same time start impacting behaviors of the team within the retrospective so that you can drive the organizational change as well. Happens in parallel. Shouldn't only look at the organization and shouldn't only look at the retrospective. There are different things and you need to work on them at the same time to really help the organization and the team to get to the positive change. Now, what are some of the things that obviously are helpful? So I talked about it at the beginning as a part of what I want to cover there are two things, structure and flexibility. And these two together can help you create the retrospective that are productive and are solution-based. So structure, what is structure? Well, something that helps us create a repeatable pattern for retrospective that creates consistency, but also removes this complexity where people are not sure what are they going to get out of the retrospective, right? We want to take away this uncertainty and we want to have a clear flow. So we want to create a clear focus on solutions and actions through the structure of a retrospective. we are also able to control the flow of discussion so that we don't talk about too many things, so that we do not run out of time, right? And we can also help with the structure. If we're using the same structure, we're able to actually track how well we're doing. Are we improving? We can actually track whether our retrospectives are productive. So the structure can help us with that. Now, flexibility, we can't just have structure, because if we have a structure of retrospectives that is too rigid, well, what can happen is that we're going to start talking about the same old problems, just kind of rinse and repeat. We're always going over and over the same things. And we don't want that. We still need to have some flexibility, because we need to adapt to the team needs, right? Yes, we can take on a regular technique that everybody else uses and just slap it on any team. We will see some results from it because it will create the structure, but over time, it will lose its effectiveness because it will no longer be adapted to the needs of the team. And when we have flexibility, we can start addressing underlying challenges, well, by adapting our approach. We can increase engagement, create a little bit of more fun, a little bit of unknown around retrospective, or people coming into retrospective, they're curious to know, what are we going to do today? What new approach are we going to use in our retrospective? So those two coming together, it really helps. And how the easiest way to use them in a retrospective, flexibility and structure, is structure having easy repeatable steps that are very clear and always help the team to go through the retrospective, while flexibility is using personalized approach. So personalizing and creating an individual approach to your team in the retrospective. So those two together can help. As I said in this short clip, I do believe that if you are creating your retrospectives and you want to get the most out of them, you would need to not only have a very good structure and clear steps that you can follow, but you also need to have some flexibility, some good, fun, different techniques that you can use to help your team be a bit more creative and just kind of give them new ideas of how to approach old challenges. And if you are looking for things like that, techniques, and you need some help or guidance on how to run them, I do have lots of retrospective techniques that you can find in my store, and you can run them in person and online. So if you haven't checked those out, I do have templates and instructions that you can follow. So go check it out. I'm going to put all of the links in the description. And also, we had a little guest there. You want to be on camera? And that's it for this video. I hope you learned something new, and if you did, remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And I'll see you next time. Cheers and Scrum on!